Hi everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. This one is on the road a bit, and I am glad to be talking on this episode with author Paul Kane. May I call you Paul?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Hello. Thank you,
Hi.
Jason.
Thanks for joining. I know that you are the author of Bleeding Hearts, Hellbound Hearts, Snow, and this last title I like a lot, Short, Sharp Shocks. So someone who is masterful in the long form story as well as those brief moments of emotion that come through in storytelling.
Well, hopefully, allegedly.
Yes, yes. What led you to this world of authoring and creating?
I mean, I've always had kind of like the stories in me, and I've been trying to get them out all my life, really. So when I was little, I used to kind of play with action figures and kind of like try and get the stories out that way. Comic books, they were sort of like my dad used to buy me a comic book every time we went into. We got a little village. I was in a quite out of the way area, so my dad used to buy me a comic book every time we went into the village. And he'd buy me things like Batman and Dracula and all those kind of things. Probably things that he shouldn't be, buying me. But my dad was a genre fan. So in the 70s, we were watching things like Star Trek and Doctor Who and all the good stuff, Incredible Hulk, all of that kind of business. And they showed me, my mum and dad, God bless them, showed me things like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the 70s version when I was only, very young, sort of 7 or 8 or something like that. And these things had like an impact on me. But in terms of like the written word, I mean, I'd create my own comic, try and create my own comic books because I can draw as well. So I sort of used to draw before I could, write. I'd draw the kind of images and things. And I sort of, I mean, my granddad used to read to me as well. Enid Blyton's The House in the Fog. I remember that kind of stuck with me as well because it was quite a surreal story, and through that I kind of like graduated onto like ghost stories of people like Dickens and M.R. James and people like that at school, and writing sort of essays at school, and they'd set you something to write, and mine would end up being like a short story, so I kind of graduated to that. And there's something called what I call my real in inverted commas education, which was sitting down and just reading everything that was genre related. So crime, horror, science fiction, fantasy. While I was at school in my teens, I was reading all this kind of stuff like Frank Herbert's Dune is one of my favorites. I mean, James Herbert's The Rats. There was a book called Brother in the Land by Robert Swindells, which was post-apocalyptic. So all these kind of things are kind of an eclectic mix, and that sort of reflects what I ended up doing later on. And I started to bash my own stories out on my mum's old battered typewriter. I had a bit of a segue where I went to art college. Then I went to university after that, where I kind of like went into journalism, and then I discovered the small presses, and I was sending short stories to the small presses and the British Fantasy Society, and that they were kind of like heady days. I would call them a golden age for me, anyway. Not necessarily for everybody, but that's what kind of led me into the writing, reading lots of it, and writing lots of it. So.
Lovely. I love the mixture of genres and love that comics and action figures are also part of your background. Same here. I used to tell
Mm.
stories with action figures and act out things. Uh, what is it about horror in particular that draws you in and allows you to craft the stories that you want to share?
I mean, horror. I've always been a fan of horror and the darker side of things, whether it was in science fiction or anything else. I've always liked the imaginative genres. I think are a good way to tell a story, like coming in from it at right angles almost. Like you can say something about a society that might be, all purple aliens or whatever it is, or a ghost, and you're actually saying something about your world or your society or what's going on in that. So you can kind of say it indirectly. Horror is very good at that. like even like things going back to even the 70s, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Poltergeist, commenting on the family dynamic, and even up to like present day with like folk horror has come back in a massive way now because things are kind of a bit unstable at the moment, and people are like looking not necessarily in their own lives looking to the old ways, but they're sort of like drawn to it in film and books and stuff like that. So I think it's a good way to sort of comment on society and problems in general in an indirect way. You're not sort of beating people over the head with it. You're saying it in a very subtle way, whether it's, I don't know, stuff to do with like racism or sexism or anything else. You can kind of come at it indirectly in horror, and that's one of the things I like about it. I mean, you can't obviously do that stuff without having good characters, good settings, a good story. So I love all that as well. Uh, Lots of characters stand out in my head. Jack in The Shining, and lots of kind of like famous characters that kind of just stand out in your head. I mean, Carrie, obviously, Frankenstein. Going back years, just all the really good sort of characterization stuff. And I was drawn to that. I was drawn to sort of the horror side of things and the darker side of things. Maybe it was to do with my mum and dad kind of showing me these things early on, and they're stuck in, it's stuck in my kind of brain, stuck in the drain of things as it's kind of going down. But yeah, I think it's also that thing of like being able to get rid of like the monster, or get rid of something that's really horrible safely. And by the end of the book or by the end of the film, you can kind of put the book away. You can switch the Netflix off or whatever it is, or the streaming service you're watching, and the monster's gone from that. It's kind of a safe way of like of experiencing that fright, that horror, even if it's a really shocking ending that doesn't necessarily, it's not really a sort of a soft ending or anything like that. Even if the monster doesn't die at the end, and in a lot of them he comes back, doesn't he? So it's like even if that happens, you can still kind of close the book, switch the film off. And I think it's kind of a safe way of experiencing that sort of thrill of shock, like being on a roller coaster, I suppose. That kind of thing. You get off the roller coaster at the end of it. Hopefully, you get off intact. But it's that kind of thing. I think that's what I like about it as well.
Curious about that move to the short story. Is there anything in particular that you keep in mind when you know that the canvas is brief as opposed to sort of a more extensive canvas?
Yeah, it's a different skill set altogether. I was having this conversation recently with somebody. I mean, a lot of people think short stories and then I'll graduate to novels, and it's a very different skill set. It's like anything else. It's like going from fiction to writing scripts, which I also do, or going to audio, going to, writing a graphic novel. They're very different skill sets, and you have to bear very different things in mind when you're writing those. So you have only got sometimes 1,000 words, 5,000 words to get everything across. So you can't skimp on creating characters or settings, but it does have to be briefer than it would be in a book. You can't take pages and pages to describe where the character is entering through a gate and seeing the haunted house and everything else. You've got to kind of just get in there, and the broad strokes of the character and broad strokes of the, don't skimp on, obviously. You've got to get your reader there as well. You've got to kind of have them picture it. But there is that to bear in mind, that you've only got this certain amount of words to get in there and do the business and make sure you're actually doing your job properly. So that's something to bear in mind when you are doing a short story. It's why some people only do short stories, or some people only do novels. So I mean, we edit a lot of anthologies, myself and my wife Maria Regan. We edit a lot of anthologies, and we might go to somebody and say, "Will you do as a short story?" And it might be a best-selling author, a best-selling writer who's done novels for many years, and they say, "Well, I wouldn't know where to start with a short story because it is very different." So it's that kind of thing to bear in mind. It's not necessarily like a graduation from short stories to novels. They are very different things, but I'm lucky that I can kind of like I enjoy doing both of them. A lot of people don't enjoy doing both, but I do enjoy doing the brevity of kind of getting something across in that short period of, that short amount of time that you spend with your reader. It might be just like a quiet half hour or 45 minutes in a break that you've got your reader for, and you've got to kind of get in there and sort of make sure you grab them and
I'm curious about how your writing process has grown. Has that changed for you as you've been a writer and as you've spent time with the craft? Or have there been particular parts that have stayed pretty consistent?
Yeah, I learned to plan quite early because I was just bashing the short stories away and on the typewriter, and they were going in all kinds of directions, and so I learned to sort of sit down and plan out what I was going to do. I'm a big planner now. I do, I do chapter breakdowns, I do synopses, which a lot of writers hate. I don't mind doing synopses and chapter. I like having kind of a rough map to follow or a guideline to follow. So I can just look at it and go, that's where I am at this point in the book or at this point in the short story. Even if it's a short story, I might jot a little kind of like page in a little notebook down, just where I think it might be going. Doesn't mean you have to stick to it slavishly or anything like that. But I like having that kind of like that plan, that roadmap to follow. Um, and just knowing where I am in a story. So that I learned that quite early on, and I've kind of stuck with that all my life. I do plan. I've got books and books and books, which are like just different size books. For a novella might be like an A5, and I've got different size books for different projects, and lots of kind of like books at the side of me on like they've got a coffee table thing at the side of me that are just full of like A4 books and notebooks and things, depending on what I'm working on at the time. But yeah, I'm a big planner, which drives Marie crazy because she doesn't like to plan. So she's a pantser and I'm a planner. That's what they call it, isn't it?
And that's it. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is currently on your radar creatively? What are you exploring right now? And I also usually ask where we can find more information if there are places that people can connect with you.
You mean what I'm writing personally now, or what I'm involved in?
Yeah.
Like I say, I'm doing a lot of kind of anthologies at the moment. We're just handed one in, which is about to be announced next week, an anthology, and we're working on one at the moment, which has already been announced, which is Best Served Cold. It's for Flame Tree. It's revenge stories, so lots of revenge stories in that one coming out next year. But at the moment, we've got things out at the moment for a few things. Dream Inspires, which is a Dark Academia anthology that came out in September. That's through Titan. Death Comes at Christmas, which is a crime. It's just come out in paperback. It came out in hardback last year. That's a paperback crime anthology that we did together. The Short Sharp Shocks, which you mentioned, which is basically stories and scripts and behind the scenes things from all my short films that got made based on my scripts or my stories. And in January, we've got another anthology out called Beyond and Within Witchcraft, which is out in January. I've got a novella which is out called Aura through Vervain at the moment, which is only out as an ebook, but it should be out as a paperback soon. Um, Writing wise, I'm sort of I'm doing a sequel to The Storm, which I brought. Like the original came out through PS Publishing, which is my homage to big monster films and books like The Crabs and the Rats that I mentioned before, and kind of like alien invasion films and things like that. So I'm doing a sequel to that at the moment, which is a short novel. It's about 50,000 words. And I kind of circled back to the short stories again because I had a period of time when I wasn't writing so many of those. And I've kind of got back into that like I did when I first started my career back in the 90s. And I'm sort of writing a few when it takes me, I'm sort of building up a few collections. I've got a crime collection coming out around February time through the P.L. Kane name, which is the books I did for Harper, which are the crime books, and hopefully a general collection towards the end of next year, which is everything I've done over the last few years that have been in publication, some new stories. So it's just all keeping busy, really. I like to keep busy. And people can find out about me through my website, which is shadow-writer.co.uk. And I'm on all social medias, really, Instagram, X, Mastodon. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Blue Sky. You name it. I'm across all of those. So if they just put Paul Kane in, they should get me, Paul Kane writer or author or something like that. They can follow what I'm saying on there. So that's where people can find me and find out what I'm doing on a kind of day-to-day basis.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, very easy to track down, it sounds like, and lots of work to enjoy and work on the
I
way.
do a lot
Did
of
we?
things. So in different media. So I normally talk about what we do, and people like to follow our. We at the weekends we have a Saturday night chiller. So we watch a horror film, and people go, "Oh, I was thinking of watching that. That's just reminded me." So if anybody wants to look what we're watching on a Saturday night, we watched The Thing a couple of weeks ago. So, and we watched The Thing, and then we watched The Thing, which was the prequel to The Thing. So,
Nice, nice.
so yeah, that's the best way to kind of keep track of me, really.
Well, many thanks for the time, Paul. Many thanks for the creating, and glad to have you back anytime as you're working on
Oh,
projects.
thank you, Jason. Thank you for having me. Thank